Hi, I'm Nathan Smith. I will be discussing gender roles in films by comparing gender roles in some James Bond films and Charlie's Angel films. I will be focusing on sexual objectification, power, status, and supremacy. In order to understand how gender roles are portrayed, it is important to understand what was happening at the time when these films were made and how society was structured. James Bond movies began in 1960 when patriarchy was the way of the world. Patriarchy is known as male supremacy. Men had higher status in the working and social world and dominated women. The Charlie's Angels movies was based on a television show made in the 1970s and continued to the early 1980s, where there was a push on feminism. The Charlie's Angel movies was made in the 2000s, where there was another push on feminism. Feminism is known as women's rights, where women are wanting the same rights as men in regards to work, social status, finance, education, and politics. In the early 60s, the gender roles for men and women were very much that women stayed at home while the men went out to work. In the mid-60s, women started fighting against sexism and their roles. Towards the late 60s, women started to break into the workforce where they were discriminated against. Women protested in the women's liberation movement. They started to fight for equal rights. This continued on into the 70s, where there was a small breakthrough where women were able to work after marriage. This continued on into the 70s, where women had a small breakthrough and women were allowed the right to work after marriage. In the 1980s, the law was changed to ensure women's rights were protected in the workplace and business. In the 90s, gender roles for women in the workforce were better. The law was changed so women could have the same rights as men in the workplace. It wasn't until the late 90s where women moved into upper management. Although there's a lot of women working in the workforce and gender roles have changed, the fact is that majority of high upper level roles are still carried out by male, and male patriarchy still has a high status today. Although women's roles have changed, the male patriarchy supremacy is still very strong within society. Both films show patriarchy system in place. James Bond plays the main character in the Ian Fleming book series, which were made into movies, as a spy for MI6. He is portrayed as a superior, high status, sexy male in the movies, but James Bond ultimately answers to someone higher up, that person being M. The character M is the head of MI6. He gives James Bond his missions. M is portrayed as a male role up until 1990s, when M became a female role. This continued until 2012, when M reverted back to being a male role. The movie GoldenEye was made in the 1990s, when the third wave of feminism was taking place, allowing women the right in the workplace to move into middle to upper management roles. This change in the gender of M reflected society's change when the film was made. This change in the gender of M reflected the change of society at the time when this movie was made. However, in 2012, at the end of Skyfall, character M went back to being a male role. Even though women have moved into higher level roles, generally males still seen to have higher status power in the world, and that women are still held under the patriarchy of men. In the James Bond movies, the women usually have more of a supporting role in the films. The women are always looking good and sexy. The ultimate status for men in society is to have an attractive female partner. The Bond girls are portrayed as damsels in distress who flirt with James Bond and help him. This is common throughout all of the movies, even when M is a female. It shows that male supremacy is still very evident, and it appears portraying M as a female figure was a token gesture, reflecting on the feminist movement and not a genuine move to enhance women's status in society. In comparison to James Bond films, the main characters in the movies Charlie's Angels are three girls who are smart, capable, strong, and have traits traditionally known for men. The three girls are a team of secret agents who are given missions by their boss, Charlie. Similarly as the James Bond films, the head person, boss, being the character Charlie, is a male, and he is effectively controlling the girls, gives them their missions, and they have to answer to him. Although Bosley is also a man, he is the connection between Charlie and the girls. He takes more of a supporting role to assist the girls in their mission. This shows that even the girls are portrayed as the dominant, they are still answering to a man. The male is the dominant character with the ultimate power. Sexual objectification is the use of treating a person like a sex object, so you can fantasize about them for sexual pleasure. Sexual objectification is used in many films to interact with and attract the audience. In the James Bond movies, Bond is an athletic, handsome, charming, gets the girls person. Females in the film fall in love with him, flirt with him, assist him, and support him. This reinforces the female viewer's sexual fantasy perception of what their ideal man should look like. The way Bond is portrayed is to encourage the women in the audience to objectify Bond in a sexual way. Bond in most of his films has a scene where his shirt is off, so everyone can see his attractive body. He is always well dressed, charming in his other scenes. It shows sexual objectification in James Bond's character is who every woman wants to be with, and men want to be him. Similarly, in Charlie's Angels, the way the girls are portrayed is to give a sexual fantasy of women as tall, sexy, athletic and beautiful to keep the male audience interested. The girls are always dressed up in tight, often short skirts, low cut tops to show off their bodies. Their hair and makeup are always perfect. They have bikini scenes to show off their body to attract attention from the male population. The male audience are encouraged to lust for these girls and want them, while the female audience to be those girls and to have their capabilities and looks. Both films use sexual objectification to gain power over the other gender within the film. In Charlie's Angels, the girls use their body to distract the male so they can get what they want. They use their bodies in a sexual way to manipulate men to get want by using sexual gestures. Another example in Casino Royale is when James Bond is coming out of the ocean in his swimmers, striding up onto the beach, showing off his six-pack. It's designed to attract attention from the female character to try and to get into bed with. This also appeals to the women in the audience. Both films use sexual objectification to keep the audience interested by using sexual scenes, purposely targeting a particular gender and to attract them to the film. The time period in which the films were made impacts how the gender roles in both films are portrayed. As shown, In the films, the gender role of the woman has changed over the decades. Traditionally, women had no equal rights in society, worked up to having higher roles in society. However, the patriarchy system is still very present in today's society and is shown in both films. Sexual objectification was used to reinforce that gender roles in society. It is also used to draw the audience into the film and attract them to the character. It is clear that society has a long way to go in equalising gender roles. This will be reflected in the films of the future, as they have been always.